Hi everyone. So we warmly welcome you all to this session. Let's get started. Hope everyone can see my screen. So a very warm welcome to everyone who is joining our workshop today on how to create APIs in minutes. I am Kavishka Fernando and I'm a developer relations specialist at WSO2. And we also have Chathura Ekayanake, who is associate director, who will be conducting the demo today. So in today's session, we will be introducing Choreo, which is a digital platform as a service, and how we can easily create an API in just a few minutes using Choreo. So let's first have a look at the current market and where it's heading. So as you can see, we are heading towards an economy where our consumers are expecting different types of experiences for consuming technologies. So we have been consuming the same sort of services over time, such as health, banking, music, those sort of services, and so on. So even though the services that we are consuming are the same, how we consume these services have evolved over time due to various innovations in technology. So we've evolved from consuming services from mainframes, then to desktop applications, we've moved to web applications, then to mobile applications, and we've also moved to wearable devices. So, and moving ahead to the future, we are seeing innovations on the metaverse using technologies like Web3 and blockchain as well. So, what our customers are expecting from us as technology evolves is a unique, personalized digital experience for them to consume our business services. In order to provide this personalized digital experience, we have to build it yourself. So it's not something that you or I can just go out there and buy, because if that was possible, then your competitor would also go out there and buy it, and there won't be any difference between you and them. So it will no longer become a differentiator. So, but building this digital platform is very challenging, right? So, a research conducted by HBR 2 years ago showed us that more than 70% of digital transformation projects fail, and a large amount of money is invested into these projects as well. So, whose fault is this? So, we don't believe that it's a fault of engineers or a specific organization. We believe that it's a fault of all the complexities we have had to deal when we try to get a product into the market faster in production scale. So this is a challenge that many organizations are facing at the moment. So if you look at this image, this is an image of the technology landscape of CNCF. So this has a variety of open source technologies that you can utilize to build various digital capabilities. So the complexity needed to use these technologies and the knowledge you need to have to wire them all up is very massive. So, and this is a huge task, and that is why many digital transformation projects are failing at the moment. So, this has led to organizations having to spend a large amount of time doing things that are either repetitive or that are not core to their business competency. So, they spend about 75% of the time doing things that are repetitive or that are not core to their business or make them differentiate them from another business. So, and they spend only 25% of their time developing what is actually differentiating to their business. So, to solve this issue, larger companies have the money and the resources to invest on building internal platforms where you can offload all these repetitive and non differentiating actions, right? But in reality, with our experience working with customers, it takes multiple years in order to build a platform like this, and it takes a lot of resources that companies really don't have. So, in addition to this, you have to keep improving and maintaining as new technologies evolve, and this is definitely not an easy task to do. So, what enterprises really need in the modern world at the moment is a readily available platform which can help them to innovate. So, there should be two main components when it comes to this. One is a digital platform which provides a collection of digital capabilities where you can reuse and wire them up to build new digital capabilities. It should also provide digital experience engineering practices. So this is basically a combination of what you see in a typical iPaaS world and the best practices you can see in the hardcore SC worlds, like software engineering worlds, such as versioning, revision management, rolling back, and those sort of interesting features. So if you look at the technology landscape today, the type of software that you deal with to create low touch integrations completely focuses on low code or no code kind of development. And as a result of this, you lose some of the best practices in the software engineering world. So to innovate in the digital world, you need to have the best of both worlds. And this is what's needed in the modern enterprise. And we need to spend more time innovating and less time on repetitive tasks that are not core to our business. So we believe that digital experience engineering can produce applications that produce the experiences that you're looking for in the modern world. So, and as users start consuming these experiences, they can give feedback to the development teams, and then the feedback can be reiterated into the digital experience engineering process, and it can be enhanced to provide better experiences. So now you might be wondering what this platform should actually look like. So we think that it needs to look something like this diagram over here. So it needs to encompass the capabilities of an iPaaS along with API management systems, certain capabilities of identity as a service, database as a service, and application as a service as well. So that's basically what Choreo is. So Choreo is a digital platform as a service that organizations can use to deliver new digital experiences fast. It abstracts out all the underlying complexities of cloud native infrastructures and lets you create new integrations, services, and APIs in a very short period of time. So if you have a look at this diagram, this is a very high level architecture of Choreo. So usually in any digital transformation project, we would start with a strategy and then some kind of business architecture, which would lead to a solutions architecture and then a systems architecture, which would then lead to the implementation side of the business. So right now we start at the implementation level of components, assuming that you have your architecture in place. So Choreo allows you to program these digital components either using a graphical view or a source code view. So it's integrated with GitHub for both code management and CI/CD as well. So we also have a built-in CI/CD pipeline, which takes full responsibility of taking your code from the development to production environment. And we also have a non-production environment along with testing capabilities as well. So we also have API management capabilities, including API gateway, developer portals, and all of those things you sort of need to expose your APIs to different types of consumers, even externally or internally as well. So we also have a API marketplace. So the marketplace has both a public space as well as a private space. So this private space can be private to your organization. So Choreo allows you to consume from the marketplace and publish into the marketplace as well. So this is where you can see all the digital components that are available for reuse, and you can contribute either to the private marketplace or public marketplace. So we also have supportive services to run this entire system, including full-fledged API lifecycle management, and it also manages your APIs, code, CI/CD pipeline, and environments as well. So we also provide deep observability and business insights for troubleshooting. It doesn't only troubleshoot your components, but also your business performance as well. So it also provides artificial intelligence at development time and runtime in order to detect certain abnormalities. So we also provide API security, where you want to make sure that the right consumers are accessing your APIs, and also internal security when components are communicating with each other. So that's a very high level architecture of Choreo. So this slide shows the various features or the various dimensional features or the high level feature verticals or capabilities of Choreo. So I won't be going through this whole list. You can have a look at it once the recording is available. So what is our promise to the market? Our promise to the market is that we try to get organizations into a position where they can spend more time developing features that are core and differentiating to their organization, and spend less time focusing on things that are repetitive or not differentiating to their business. So we want to improve that 25% of time that you spend innovating to at least 75%. So, in summary, Choreo delivers speed where you can develop and deploy API services and integrations very fast. Then it provides simplicity so that you don't have to worry about all the underlying complexity, such as high availability, auto scaling. We take care of all of that for you. And Choreo also provides security along with first class governance of APIs and other components. So, next we have in line a demo on how we can create an API in minutes using Choreo. Over to you, Chathura.
Thanks, Kavishka. So I first share my screen. Yeah, I hope all of us can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, so I will briefly explain the scenario that we are going to demonstrate. So here we are considering a supermarket chain which has multiple shopping outlets. Now, whenever a customer checks out in one of these supermarket outlets, then that outlet sends a sales bill containing all the items that the particular customer has purchased to the central processing system. So in our case, central processing system is implemented in Choreo platform, and within this platform, we want to enrich this sales bill data by including additional data about customers as well as products by connecting to corresponding CRM systems as well as to product catalog. Then we have to publish this data into a Kafka cluster so that other systems can also consume that. Then, so in addition to that, we also want to store this data in Azure Cosmos DB for further analysis. So this is our main use case that we are going to demonstrate. And also to receive these sales bills, we want to have a managed API so that we can enforce all security and rate limiting policies on it. So if you consider this diagram, so here we are consuming multiple services and also connecting with multiple services as well. So here our CRM system is a REST service and our product catalog is in a MySQL database. So we want to access both the REST service as well as the MySQL database to enrich our data. And once data is processed, we want to publish that into Kafka as well as to Azure Cosmos DB. So in terms of processing, I will show the incoming payload. So it will be something like this here. So it contains the bill ID, customer ID, and time, and the array of bill items that the customer has purchased. So for each item, we have product ID and the quantity. Then by connecting to these external systems, this Choreo business logic has to enrich this data and produce something like this for each item. For example, for each item, we have to have this information, the product ID, unit price, category, and regarding the customer, we have to have the age and the city of the customer. And also we have to have the date in this format. Also, we have to calculate the total amount as well. So this is what we are going to do. So let's try to implement this in Choreo. So this is the main page of the Choreo. When you log into Choreo, this is what you see. Now in this case, we want to build a component. So what you want to, so when you click on create, you get multiple options to create components. For example, you can create a REST API, schedule tasks, webhook implementations, and so on. So in this case, we want to create a REST API. So let's click on this one. And I have the option to create the API from scratch, as well as if I have the open API specification, I can import that and create the API based on that. So in this case, I'm going to create that from scratch. So I'll name this as billing data API. So here, as Kavishka mentioned earlier, this source code is maintained in a GitHub repository. And you have two options there as well. Either you can use Choreo managed repository, or you can bring in your own GitHub repository as well. So in this case, I will use the Choreo managed repository and I will create the service. So it will create all the necessary components to have this service and give us the ability to go to different life cycle stages of the service. So now our service is created. So it gives a sample implementation as well as one method for the API as well. Now you can see that here we can go through different life cycle stages of the service, like we can deploy it to development or production environments and test that and manage APIs and so on. But first we have to implement our service logic. So for that we can click on edit code and go to the edit view. So I have already opened the edit view here. So here first we want to have a REST API or the REST method to receive data in this format. So this is our input format. So for that we can define a data structure. So data structures are referred to as records in Choreo. So let's create a record. So let's call that as sales data record. Now I can give each and every field and create the record, or else if I have the JSON, I can just import that so that it will automatically create the record according to this format. So this is our input JSON. So I'm going to create my record in that format. So now it is automatically created. Now I can save that. Now I can go ahead and create my main method for the API. So I'm going to modify this. So because we are sending sales data, we want to have that as a post method. And let's call this operation as bills. And I can configure advanced options here. I want to give the payload type. So we don't have any query parameters, but we have a payload. So our payload type is sales data, the record type that we have just defined. So let's call this something like sales bill. And for the return type, let's have a JSON. So we are done with defining our operation. So here we can now get rid of this sample implementation. Okay. Now for the return value, for this demonstration, we will just return a simple value, JSON value. We can define the JSON here itself. Lib status is always equal to success in this case. Now we have created a HTTP operation which can receive this payload and sends the success message. Now we can try this out and let's try to log the bill ID. Now if you look at the message, there's a field called bill ID. Now let's try to log that. It says bill. You can access any field just using the dot notation here. This is what you want to print. We can have some string here as well. Let's say received bill, something like this. Now we can try this out. You can just run this. Okay, now it is running. Now we can try this out. It shows, it gives us a editor, so the innoc view here. So we can just give our payloads and try this out. So this is our method. Now let's copy and paste this sample payload. Here the bill ID is B25. Now when I invoke this should log this bill ID. So you can see that this bill ID is logged. So that means our initial part of the implementation is working. Now we have to do the rest of the things. First, we have to connect to the CRM system and get custom information. So for that, let's say that this is our CRM service. So this is the URL, and as a path parameter, we have to give the customer ID. So when you invoke that, we'll get a payload like this. So let's create another record to hold this payload. So we can name that as customer data. Again, we can create that by importing the JSON. Okay, now we have created that. Then we want to invoke this HTTP operation. So for that, we have to use a connector. So in Choreo, we have a whole lot of connectors to connect with different systems. Now, for example, if I go to connector, so there are connectors for Google Sheets, Salesforce, and Stripe, and so on. Now, in this case, I need a HTTP connector. Let's search for HTTP, and I have the HTTP client connector. So here I can name this as I can give any name for this. Let's call it CRM endpoint. And I have to give the URL here. So in our case, the URL is this one. This is the service URL of the CRM system. That's fine. Okay, now we can save this connector. Okay, now the connector is saved. Now we can invoke any operation on that connector. So in this case, we want to invoke the get method from this connector, because we are invoking a HTTP get method here. So path here will be the customer ID. So if I check our input data, there's a field called customer ID. So we should be able to access that from our sales bill. Okay. We get that one. Now we can give any name for the response. Let's call it customer. And our response type is the record type that we just created, which is customer data. So the Choreo will do the data mapping automatically to map the output from this service invocation to our record type. Now we are done invoking the customer service or the CRM service. Now we want to format the date into this format. So our date is given in this string format. We want to have a structure like this to represent date. So for that, so as Kavishka has mentioned, we can do the editing in both graphical view as well as in code view. For this, I will switch to the code view. And I want to have some packages here. So I need time package to handle times. What I want to do here is create a structure. In this case, we call it a civil time. Say time, let's call it. And we want to convert that string to this format. So input string will be sales bill and time. Verify, yes, we call it as time. So this is our input for this. With that, so you can add a check statement to look for any errors that can happen in this conversion. So now we create the time variable here. Now again, we want to use UUID to generate a unique identifier for our record. For that, we will import the UUID package as well. Okay. Now, yeah, we are done with that. Now we can again switch to the graphical mode and do the rest of the processing. Now here, what we want to do is to, so there's some problem, let me go back here. That should be fine. For each billing item here in our bill, we want to get product details for that product. So for that, we will use for each loop. So we'll use the for each loop. In this case, we are checking for this record, this part. So this is our unit that we are iterating to. So we'll have a record for that. We can name that as bill item. So our collection will be sales bill dot bill. So this is the collection that we are iterating through. So we are done with the iteration. Now here you can see that in the code view also it adds this iteration. Now for each product ID, we want to call this MySQL database and get the product details. So for that, let me show the database structure. So this is the database table structure that we are using. So we have product ID column, and with that we have these details. Now what we want to get is the category and the unit price. So let's use a MySQL connector for that. Host here will be this, and this is the MySQL cluster. And for user and password, I don't want to hard code that, so I will use a configurable. So when I use a configurable, it will prompt me to enter this when I am deploying this service. So I'll do the same for password as well. I have defined two configurables for database username and the password. And our database is called CityMartDB. And we are using the standard MySQL port. So we are done with defining the MySQL connector. So now it is importing necessary packages and adding that to the service. Yeah, now the connect is added. Now we can invoke that. So for each product ID, I want to invoke action from this MySQL endpoint. So action or the operation will be query row. So because you know that there will be only one row matching our query. So query will be this one. Basically, we want to select the category and the unit price from the product catalog table, and we want to give the product ID as the bill item .pid. So this is our query. And our response is we are querying for the category and the unit price. This is our response. So you can name that as product data. So now we are done getting data from the database. So after that is included, we are basically done collecting all the data that we need. Now we can define or create the data structure for our output, which will be this one. We have the database query here. Now I want to create the output structure. Again, for that, I will be adding a record. Okay, so let's name that as item sale. And I am creating that from this JSON message. Okay, now it is created. Now I can fill in that record, that data structure by selecting necessary information from the payloads that we have already received. So for that, it is easier to do that from the code view. So here, what I'll do is I will declare a variable of this type, item sale, call that as item sale, and now I can fill in that data type. So first, I have to fill the record ID. So for that, I'm just using the UID package. Create a string UID. Okay, now I have to fill in the customer data. So I think it has a field called bill ID. I can fill the bill ID. And extract from sales data. We call that as sales bill. Bill ID. Then I have to fill in the product data. For that I need to have product ID, unit price, and the category. For the category, I can extract that from the product data that we just got from the MySQL database. And I can do the same for unit price as well. So here, yeah, I can change this. Okay, next I have to fill in the customer data. Yes, yeah. So I'll copy this thing. For that, I have to have custom ID agent city. Age I can extract from the customer data that I have got from the CRM system. And do the same for city. Okay. The last one will be the date. Yeah, so I can get this from the sale time they have defined earlier. Then I have to fill in the quantity as well as the total. So quantity is, I can just get this from the iteration. Total I can calculate by multiplying the unit price by the quantity. So this will be a int, so that I have to pass that to a float. Yeah, so I have done filling in my output data structure. Now I can simply publish that to my Kafka topic. So to publish this to Kafka, again, I have to create a connector to connect with Kafka. There's some loading time there. Not sure what's happening there. Simple that again. I think there's some glitch there. So this connect is not loading at the moment. So to demonstrate this, I will simply return the output here. Yeah, so maybe the last one. Okay, so what I will do is this, I will simply log this so that you can see that we have created the output. So after in of this, now it should print this output data for each product item. I think there's some problem going on, maybe my network connection, I'm not sure. Okay, so I think you got some idea about how we can do these things. Like we in this demo, so basically we invoke this CRM endpoint to our REST service, and also we got product-related data from a MySQL database, and then now what I am trying to do is to publish this data into a Kafka topic, but seems like Kafka Connect is not loading at the moment, so I think we have to wrap up now because of the time. Yeah, so this is how we can basically do that. I think you can get an idea. So if we switch to the code mode, so you can see what you have done here. So we have created these data structures just by importing the JSON. So we didn't type in any of these things. We just imported the JSON and created these data structures. And then we defined our connectors here. So this is the REST connector and this is the MySQL connector. And in the post operation, builds operation, we have invoke the CRM endpoint to get customer data. And also we have formatted the time. And then for each product in the bill, we have invoked the MySQL connector to query the database to get product data. And then we have created the item sale data structure to contain all the product data so that we can publish that into a Kafka topic. So that's it. This let me try for another time whether this Kafka thing is working. Okay, so I think so you got an idea about this. So we'll post this recording as well. Also, I'll cover some of these topics in the Choreo developer channel so that you can get a more idea about that. So that's it about our demo. So any questions?
So I think we had a few questions on the chat which I managed to answer.
Okay.
So I think the interesting part about Korea is like our API marketplace and the connectors available, which encourages API reuse and sharing, so that it makes collaborative development much easier within Choreo itself. So that is something that we really encourage in Choreo. So as you saw through Chathura's demo, it's very easy to create a API in Choreo, right? It takes only a few minutes, just a few clicks. Even when it comes to deploying an API within Choreo, you just can deploy your API just from a few clicks by clicking the deploy button. You can navigate into the production environment, into the development environment, and we have a lot of inbuilt testing features where you can test on the go. And before you actually commit your code into the repository, you can test your API or integration or service and see whether it's working fine, and then go ahead, commit your code, then deploy it to the various testing and production environment. And there's so much that you can do with API management capabilities as well. You can definitely log into our Choreo website, sign in to our Choreo portal and try it out and see. So there are many resources available out there that I have added to the chat as well. So you can watch a few videos available in our channel, and the demo that Chathura did is also available in our Choreo Dev YouTube channel, the detailed version of it. So you can have a look at that and also get some information. So if there are no more questions, I guess we can wrap up. So if you have any more questions, please post on the chat. We can take it up, Chatra and myself, we can take it up through email, or make sure to drop us an email, or you can also reach out to us over Twitter or anything like that. And we have a Choreo Slack channel as well. So if you visit our website, you can find all this information on ways to reach us. So thank you so much for joining our session, and thank you, Chatra, for that demo. And thank you very much for joining. Have a nice day.